Here I come.
I sense something elusive. Stay a while and listen.
Well met. You are not prepared.
This better be good. Existence is mysterious.
Loud and clear.
Hello there.
Greetings, traveler, and welcome to the Blue Recluse.
Welcome to episode 205 of the Blue Recluse. My name is Martin Larsen, and you're listening to the podcast about everything Blizzard. It's Sunday, September 23rd, and it's 2018 still. I forgot that part. And with me today, I have you, Michael. Michael is here with me. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's good to be back. Unfortunately, we had to take last week off. We kept the doors closed, but the pub is back open. We're ready to go, so grab a chair and let's do this.
Let's do it. And today's show is going to be so filled with World of Warcraft stuff that we decided to kick out Tom and say, you are not hardcore enough. You don't play enough World of Warcraft. We need someone better. So we borrowed Ryan from the Blizzard Umbrella. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm excited to talk some shop. Definitely have some things to say on all of this, so
Good.
stop wasting time. Let's get right into it.
Let's jump straight into it because there's so much we can talk about. But before we go into all the World of Warcraft stuff, let's talk about Hearthstone. How that would be fun, right? No, let's jump into some Diablo because something happened, something new. Well, not new, but it's that time again, isn't it, Michael?
That's right. It's time for the new season of Diablo. It's season 15, and some of you may remember, if you haven't jumped into the game, they actually started doing their themed seasons. For those who play Path of Exile, it would be nothing new. Their seasons have been a little bit lackluster, to be honest. Nothing really all that exciting. But this one,
Well,
I
we
think...
had one. We had one so far, so give them credit.
Has it only been one? It seems like it's been a long time.
No, it's only been one.
Okay, well, that one didn't really pique my interest all that much.
No.
But this one is a little bit better, in my opinion, because Diablo is a loot-based game, and this season's theme is the Heraldric Cache. For those who know, every time you do a certain amount of quests in a certain act, you'll get a Heraldric Cache from Tyrael. And it contains a bunch of loot, it contains plans for the blacksmith so that you could craft some cool gear. It also contains some legendaries every now and then, and now instead of just getting the one, you will get two of them, which is pretty darn awesome because in a loot based game you want all the loot, not just some of it. You want all of it. So I've actually jumped in. I started playing it this morning before the show actually, and for the first time I am rolling a witch doctor for a season. Ooh. So it's interesting. I never really got behind the character, but I play a lot of Nazebo in Heroes of the Storm, so I figured I'd give him a chance, see how it goes.
Yeah, I mean there was I think there was one season I played a witch doctor, and I actually had quite a bit of fun with it. You can do a lot of different things, and you have the zombies, and it's fun. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So yeah, good luck with that.
Thank you. I mean, it's I've already started feeling it when I started playing. I'm like, oh man, I gotta stop to do the Blue Recluse. Not that I don't enjoy doing the show, but you know, Diablo.
All right. Well, how about you, Ryan? Do you have time to play Diablo these days?
Not at the moment, man. Unfortunately, I really wish I could. I've had a lot of life, on top of being a GM of a Mythic guild and trying to do the early expansion push. So between work, girlfriend life, and wow, it's been tough to play other games at the moment. But I'm excited to get in there. Hopefully here soon.
Yeah.
Mythic guild, is that just like people that just do Mythic 0 dungeons and it's good?
Yeah.
Because that sounds like my guild.
Yeah.
Or at least the way I play it.
We actually have a rule, like if you get anything over 340, you have to vendor it, 340, that's all you can
if we see that your character has been equipped and has the superior achievement, you're kicked out of the guild.
Yep.
Sorry for that barking in the background. If anybody hears it, the dog is doing who knows what.
It's fine. It just adds atmosphere, Michael. Atmosphere.
If that's what you want to call it.
All right. So nothing really new for Diablo, I guess. Let's jump into some World of Warcraft because there's a lot going on these days. Let's start out with the sad news. I spent a lot of money again. Blizzard
You would.
released this cool mount that is a boat, and it's flying, and it's very Jaina like, and I was like, I need this. And you have to, and then I saw that you had to buy 6 months of game time as well. Well, you buy the mount, and then you get 6 months of play time. That's how it works, right? 6 months of game time. um and I was like, I need this mount. And yeah, it's cool. It's very large, and I already, like, I'm not never going to use this because I can't get through doors. It's I feel like I'm aggroing everything when I'm running through because it's just so massive. So I'm already sort of regretting that I got it. But no, seriously, it's really cool. And luckily there's no controversy around anything with this bundle, right, Michael? There's no
That's-
controversy at all.
that's right.
It's
Everybody loves the mount. They appreciate the effort that Blizzard put in to give them a mount, and the fact that you have to pay for 6 months of game time has not triggered anybody at all in the community. And if Taliesin was here, he'd say, "Of course not. It's a shit show." There are some people, some YouTubers that I came across. I was looking at their videos, just trying to see what was going on, and apparently people are considering this somebody pushed the panic button over at Blizzard, and they see that numbers are dropping off, so they had to push this button and get a new mount out there so that people will buy it and add more game time, because they've messed up BFA so much that everybody is leaving in droves. The guild bank is emptying because people are grabbing it and running. Pretty much the people that complain about World of Warcraft every week, because instead of finding things that they enjoy, they try to find things that are breaking the game. They're spelling doom and gloom for the game at this point already because of something like this, where it's a cash grab from Blizzard trying to grab their money because they've messed things up so bad, and they're afraid that people aren't going to be playing 6 months from now. So they're trying to get people to say, hey, we'll help you fix nothing and give you our money for nothing.
I'm not really buying it though. Well, I did buy it.
You did
but
buy it.
I'm
You're part of the problem. No.
But seriously, people who buy this is also people who would most likely be playing 6 months from now anyway. I think. I was like sitting there thinking, I will definitely play for the next 6 months, regardless of the state of the game, because I know myself. I enjoy the game. I enjoy the story. I enjoy everything about the game. Well, not everything, but I really enjoy playing the game. I will not be taking a break, like a large break or anything, for the next 6 months. So I jumped in and bought it straight away, and I can see the ones in my guild who have played it, whoever bought it is also like, the regular raiders and people who will most likely play for the next 6 months. So if I doubt, I seriously, I'm having a hard time seeing that this is like Blizzard trying to keep people invested.
I was telling Michael last night, Marty, I said, I agree with you. I don't think this has anything to do with Blizzard panicking and, like, hitting that oh shit button, we got to do something to keep subs up, or even from the standpoint of, oh, people are dropping, and in order to fix it, we have to bring more money in to, pay for all the man hours or whatever it is to fix it. I don't think any of that's true.
No.
But I can see how people would come to that conclusion. I think it was coincidental that the mount just so happened to drop right at that point of any expansion that has come out, where people start to realize, okay, this isn't how I want to spend the next 2 years of my life. The first month was great. It was, awesome. I did the leveling experience. I did a little bit of raiding. I did all the mythic pluses. Now I'm done. But I think the connection comes with the fact that there's a lot of what was wrong with Legion that Blizzard supposedly claimed that they fixed, but instead they just magnified the issue, in my opinion. And I think that has deterred a lot of people from wanting to put in the time and effort to do what it takes to be an in-game player, whether you're from a heroic standpoint or even a mythic standpoint. And then I said, I'm out. I've got other games that I can have quick access to, whether it be 30 minutes an evening or for 8 hours straight. I can go play those games with very little effort doing things other than how I want to play the game. I think that's the problem with WoW right now. So I can definitely see where people would make that connection with this mount dropping. Plus, it's ridiculously expensive, Marty.
But it's probably cheaper than if you were to pay for 6 months regular, right?
Yeah, does 6 months drop it down to what, $13.99 a month? Is that what the 6 month sub is? You save $2 per month.
I mean,
I'm actually not completely sure, but I'm paying for a month at a time, so I'll be saving a bit of money, I think, and I got a cool mount on top of it, so I mean I'm not complaining.
Sure.
I'm not really complaining, but one thing that I think is a little bit interesting, and I don't know if it just feels like that there's a lot of focus on all the things Blizzard did wrong this time around, or small things that people were really complaining about, or is it just me? It just feels like there's an extra focus on it this time around.
No, I think you're right, and I think the reason is because Legion was so drastically different than anything we had at any point throughout the lifespan of WoW, and I don't think we've gotten anything drastically different with BFA. I think we've just got things that have been either fixed or added upon what was already there from Legion. So, you know, all the good that came with all that, I think we've exhausted our talking about, and now it's like we were hoping for things to be fixed or changed, and when things didn't go that way, obviously we as gamers are going to complain and do it loudly. So
not me.
All right. Well, I know that we will be continuing this conversation a little bit later on, but let's continue something else for now. Let's jump to a little bit more of a happy story. Well, at least it didn't start out as a happy story, but it definitely turned into one, and that's the DBM Deadly Boss Mods. A lot of people, at least all raiders, I think, knows this add-on, and the creator, he posted a post on his forums that he quit raiding and that he was I think a little bit in doubt if he wanted to actually continue developing the mod and stuff like that because of health reasons, and he couldn't really afford whatever is wrong with him, and he posted about it, and then all of a sudden people started donating money to him through PayPal, through Patreon, and the post exploded, and he actually hit his goals really, really fast and exceeded them, and actually so much that he is talking about hiring an extra developer for the add-on now. So to be honest, I take all the add-ons that I use in World of Warcraft, I take them for granted and don't really think about how much time that sometimes goes into developing them. So when I saw this post, I felt the same as a lot of other people, and I was like, oh well, he's spending a lot of time on it, and me being a freelancer as well, I know how much when you're working on something, how much it's actually worth in money, and I think it's something people don't always think about. So I went straight to his Patreon and signed up, and is now paying money to him monthly, because this add-on is probably one of the most important add-ons for me in raiding, because it helps me massively. So I don't know how did you guys react when you saw this? Have you been a good cemeterian and helping out, or don't you care at all, you bastards?
Wow. I know Ryan had a lot to say on this, so you go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here. You know, I want to say this as respectfully as possible. I think he should step away. I do. I think, despite the fact that he's hit his monetary goals, and I certainly have, through my various conversations and talks with the Raider.io and the Ask Mr. Robot people since the beginning of Legion, it's become very apparent to me how much time and effort goes into these add-ons and these third-party services. And fortunately for some of these other groups that I've had the time and fortunate ability to speak with, they have the financial support, through and DBM, to me, I guess I was unaware that he wasn't getting the financial support that he needed. Maybe some of these other services are, and that kind of saddens me. I have not donated to him yet. I'm kind of in a financial low point right now myself. So it's extra money is not really available to me at the moment. But when I get to that point, I certainly will. But I think that my words to him would be absolutely, man, take the time you need. It's just a game at the end of the day. I absolutely applaud you and thank you for everything you've done up to this point. DBM is a fantastic add-on. We've had the likes of bigwigs that have come out just like DBM. And no matter what your flavor is, both these add-ons are great, and I definitely applaud both those people. But if you have that much life going on to where you're that stressed, it's not worth it. And money isn't going to solve those problems for you, because it's not going to, like, I read through the whole article, and it was like he was talking about he had an abscessed tooth that he was using fish antibiotics to take care of because he couldn't afford health insurance. He's got a 70-year-old mother that needs care. So unless he can just make millions of dollars to hire somebody to take care of his mom, pay out of pocket for this tooth surgery or whatever he needs, like, his problems aren't really going to go away. And it's time to put towards this, unless this developer completely takes over. But like anybody else that creates a product, I don't know if I were in his shoes if I'd want somebody to take over completely. You know what I mean? Like, I'd still want to be in charge of creatively in charge of everything. And so, yeah, man, absolutely thank you. And if a byproduct of you taking the time you need is that we lose this product, even if it's, even if not completely, if we lose it in the capacity that we currently have it, you still have my applause and my thanks, and I would still advise you to take the time you need to do what you got to do. And if you got to hire somebody to keep the thing alive while you take that time with the money that was currently given to you, then do it. But definitely a big thanks to him.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, I do agree with you that if he needs to step away, then he should definitely do it. It is, even in our guild where we are very focused on hardcore raiding and mythics, and I don't know what, even we are like, well, real life first. So if you have issues, then step away, and then we will figure something else out. You don't feel like you have to be there. So it's definitely the same. But I can also, on the other hand, understand why he's maybe reluctant to give away creative controls, as you also said, because it's his baby. I mean, that's. I think it's a good thing that he's bringing someone else in, and I think that he realized that it's probably a good call in the long run. But I could totally understand. I mean, I'm having a hard time just letting go of the blue recluse sometimes and let other people do stuff because because that's just how it is, I guess.
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight the community aspect here, which is, I mean, even we've already started talking about the community today, and it hasn't been in a positive note. People overreacting to mounts and things like that, but things like this do show that there's a reason why people still say that there's a Blizzard community. And it's because there is, and it's because of people that support each other like this that we think of a good Blizzard community. It's not because of the people that speak foul of everything that goes on. It's okay to criticize and put the blame on Blizzard when it deserves to be put on there, and let them know, like, hey, we're not happy with this. But I would like to think that the community that brought me into this is the community that's helping the DBM creator just like this. Are people coming together and helping each other in need when they need it, and just not asking for anything else. I mean, this is a free add-on that if anybody raids, most likely they use this. Every time a guild member comes in and they're like, I'm in a normal guild, and it's just all we do is normal raid, maybe heroic, but that's like very few of us. If anybody asks like, hey, what add-ons do I need? It's usually just DBM and you'll be fine. So it's good to see that somebody who has essentially changed the way that we play the game, and changed the way that the game is made. Because if you think about it, nowadays the creators have to think about the add-ons that we're using when they're designing a raid, because it's not like the old days where there wasn't anything telling you, like, it was just, okay, let's go in and figure out what's going on. Nowadays there's things yelling at you on the screen, get out of the pool, fool. Like, so I was watching Ryan stream Mythic, and he knows what it's like to be in the pools. He just stands in them. I watched it. Mechanics.
Yeah, but I'm the tank.
Even as a tank, I just cavaliered out of there. But no, community, awesome job.
Yeah, I really, I mean, it's really nice to see when the community comes together like this. And I mean, there's countless of stories about people who couldn't raid because their computer broke, and people, pooling in to, oh, here I have a leftover graphics card, you can have that, and someone else sends a hard drive things like that. And I think that's amazing. And more stories like this is always great. And I was actually considering, because between the three of us right here, we have 4 different podcasts where we could potentially reach out to this guy and say, hey, do you want to come on at least one of them and have a chat? So yeah, maybe we should look into that. Maybe TRC would probably be the most interesting because it is a rating podcast.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well, we can definitely talk about this off air, and I'll reach out. We'll talk about reaching out to him. But yeah, no, absolutely. Because I, even if it's just the simple fact that he doesn't want to come on, and I get the opportunity to say thank you on behalf of the community, and at least maybe tell him like, look, man, you shouldn't feel bad about needing to take time for yourself and your family and your friends that outside of the game. So, if nothing else, to just be able to tell him that, that'd be awesome. So
Yeah, most definitely. All right, let's move on to someone else who might use DPM. We don't completely know, but at least what he did do is pretty impressive. It's a, what is it? Is it a tank who can do this? Like a paladin?
It's always a
section-
tank. It's always a paladin.
Well, I think they balanced the talent a little bit now, so you can't do it anymore. But at least back then he could, and he because he soloed the second boss in Uldia, Mother. Pretty impressive feat, and there is a full YouTube video about how he did it. I always find it so amazing when people figure these things out, that they can do these things, and then they can secure a solo kill. I think it's amazing. Ryan, how could he do this actually?
So paladins have a talent that increases their, I believe their damage reduction as well as their damage done, based on how many mobs are present within a certain radius of themselves. I believe the talent
8
or
yards.
the spell 8 yards is last defender, right?
Yes.
And there wasn't a hard cap on it, so as long as he could sit there and bring in as many mobs as he wanted, he could arguably get this buff to stack as many times as he wanted to, and that's exactly what he did. He kited a bunch of mobs and until he got the buff stacks that he wanted, and then he figured out a way to briefly get out of combat, just in time before the buffs wore off, take his summons, which this guy has to have a really good computer because he loaded in ridiculously fast before the buffs dropped off, ran up, one-shot the boss. But since then they have put a hard cap on the amount of stacks you can get, so we were talking about, I was running a pug normal old deer because I'm not going to be there for our guild's fun run this afternoon, so I was doing it, and one of our tanks was a paladin, and he was testing out, much to the dismay of the rest of the group, how many mobs he could tank. And needless to say, it was a little irritating because he kept dying. Like, dude, they fixed it. You don't need to test it anymore. You were literally wasting our time. But
But no, but seriously, even I mean, it's always amazing to see these people figuring out how they can do current content as a solo player, because I mean, sometimes we can barely do it with 20 people, right? So going in there with one person and just owning it, it's amazing.
Yeah, what was it? Last expansion, they were talking about how, I forgot who it was that they had downed, but I think it was Mythic. What was the first boss in Antorus?
Garathi?
Yeah, I think they
Breaker?
were talking about how you like soloed that, but it was like 8 hours worth of playing, and that's not even counting all of the hours that they probably went into like testing things and trying to figure out what talents would be the best. Talk about people that have some time on their hands. I mean, more power to you, but I cannot imagine playing for 8 hours straight without being able to pause or like take a bathroom break. I couldn't even, what am I going to do? Like call my girlfriend in and be like, hey, I need you to hit these keys in these orders. If my health goes low, push this one. I need to go use the bathroom.
Have you never seen the South Park episode?
I have, okay, but I don't live with my mama, and
It's a bucket,
All right.
right behind your chair. You just
Bathroom.
move forward,
bathroom.
hit the bucket.
Just get on. Just as long as it doesn't show on stream, then it's okay, right? What's that sound in the background? It sounds like it's raining. Oh, it's
It
raining.
is.
It's raining.
Oh, it's raining. All right. It's raining. All right.
Okay, that devolved. Let's move on.
Speaking of impressive feats and not raining but streaming, Method were streaming their world first attempts, and they also won. They actually managed to beat the US. Limit was really close with a 1% wipe, and then they were tired and went to bed, and then Method won. That's how it works.
Sleep is for the enemy. Limit for the enemy.
I gotta say, man, I actually am really disappointed in Limit. They have twice last expansion they got pulled out of the running for being banned and just having issues, and this was the one time they were actually doing what they needed to do to get it done. The U.S. hasn't had a raid race win in a very, very long time, and Limit had it in the bag, and they dropped the ball.
Yeah, and they were sort of complaining a little bit on Twitter. I read that the Ventus runes were nerfed, and that was something else as well that this had decided to change in the reset, and that's sort of what they're saying is some of the reasons why they didn't re-clear and why they tried to go straight for the boss instead of re-clearing like Method did. But still, 1% wipe, man. I can imagine how bad that must feel to know that.
1%, you can kill the boss, and you shouldn't have any excuses other than somebody probably did something they shouldn't have, and you wiped.
Yeah, exactly. So it must feel really, really bad. But Method did it, and they live streamed it, and I don't know. Did you guys watch in and watch some of it?
I did.
Yeah, I did as well. I watched the first day where they had some technical issues, and I was like, oh, so is it based? So my thoughts before I figured out that they actually had issues, we were just seeing them playing and some random crappy techno music in the background, and that was it. I was sitting there feeling really old, and like I wish they just had the in-game music at least, because that's great music compared to this. But then they actually started having like commentators and the benched, which is the elemental shaman that I felt bad for, because I'm an elemental shaman
Jaina,
as well.
right?
Jaina, yeah, and his main ult is a shadow priest, so he pretty much got a little bit shafted this expansion. But I mean, it really felt like they had a good. The first day, it felt like they still had to warm up the commentators to each other and stuff like that, and figure out what to do and things like that. But I feel like the more days went on, the live stream actually, the quality got better and better. And I actually, I think I watched a few hours every day, just going in, running in the background while I was at work and things like that. But I felt like overall it can still improve, but I felt it was pretty good to actually see what was going on.
Yeah, no, I thought it was fantastic. I did want to clear up the air on a few things. I've seen a lot of people, both in my own guild and other places, talking about a few things that are not necessarily true. Method wasn't the first to do this.
Okay.
The Asian guilds did this in Legion, and it was a problem. Exorcist didn't like it, Method didn't like it, some of the US guilds didn't like it, because for the longest time, the unspoken rule was you didn't stream your raids, and you didn't upload your kill videos until 5 guilds had killed it, right? And the Asian guilds completely ignored that unspoken kind of rule between the guilds, and they did it. And Method wasn't happy about it, because Alpha at one point was knocking on the door. I think Method ended up pulling away from them before they actually really had a chance at winning, but Alpha was definitely in the running. So for Method to do this, there's a couple of times where they've talked about it. The Asian guilds kind of forced their hand, because whether they wanted it to happen or not, the Asian guilds were going to do it. So you might as well, if somebody else is going to do it despite your better intentions, well, you either jump on the wagon or you get left behind.
If you can't beat them, join them, right?
Right, exactly. And I will say the one thing Method and Sko and his team have always been fantastic about is capitalizing on opportunities. And not only did they stream it, but they did a fantastic job with the hosting as well, and making it more of an entertaining thing to join in on. Because I don't know if you've watched any of the races before, it can be incredibly boring to sit there and look at somebody's stream in between polls. Because most people, like, I don't know how your guild does it, Marty, but like when we wipe, we maybe talk about things for 5 minutes at most, and then we're right back in on the next poll because it's pretty evident a lot of times what you did and what you need to fix. These guys sometimes are taking 10, 15, 20, even 30 minutes in between polls to talk about things and fix things and completely micromanage the fight, you know?
Yeah, it's either that or the opposite, where they are just going in there, 1 minute in wiping, 1 minute 10 in wiping, 1 minute 20 wiping, because they're trying to figure out all the timers and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's not like it's the rating itself is not quality content. Let's just put it that way. But all the things that they build up around it was really cool, and it was cool to actually have Kana, who has like all the insights and stuff to actually, they're probably talking about this and this now, and this is what our plan is, and so I thought that was really cool. The only thing that, but I can understand why they don't want to do it, but the only thing that I would have loved or liked to see a bit more is probably the conversation that they had while they were raiding, but the Discord chat or whatever, and I think that's the only thing that I would have loved to see a little bit more as well. But I mean, I can understand it's still a race, right? So you don't really want to expose those tactics more than you already are doing. So I can understand why they didn't do it.
I thought it was really cool too that they got all those sponsors and they had that room. I think it was in London somewhere, wasn't it? That they had all those guys rating from. They had all sorts of sponsors attached to it. I think Red Bull, Wowhead, all these different things. So definitely congrats to them on capitalizing on an opportunity yet again. I think, Michael, you were going to say something.
Yeah, as the most casual one here, I expressed last time that we were discussing this about the pitfalls of doing this in terms of entertainment value. Because like Ryan said, it's not that fun to just watch people wipe constantly. And I said if they can turn it into more of a production and provide knowledge and kind of make it entertaining, then it could be something that can evolve and continue moving forward. And one thing that I really want to say is how well I felt that they did that. Like you guys said, they did have a bench player, but his perspective on things, he was able to delve deep. One thing that I want to say, that by all the hosts, not just the actual players, but like they had a few hosts that obviously aren't Mythic Raiders, but they were still there and they were giving commentary. Their interaction with the chat was really well done. They weren't just reading off every comment and being like, haha, that's funny. Like, they were answering questions from the chat and going deep dive into it. And even more so, I gotta hand it off to the ladies of the stream, because there was a lot of crap given to them from chat a lot of times that I saw, and either they just ignored it or they played off of it extremely well. I remember there was one point where they took a break and they're like, okay, well, we're going to head off now. So this is probably going to make some of those people feel good since they've been telling us to leave for about 30 minutes now. And they were just laughing and having a good time with it. So the way that they handled it, like their composure during all of that, excellent stuff. And I was entertained. I didn't get to watch the kill. I watched the day before the kill where Method was trying to figure out, do we want to go for the kill tonight? We've slowly started getting worse. Like, they got it down to 17% at one point, and then they were like, okay, we need to make the choice now, because NA can come while we're sleeping, and nothing's worse than waking up and seeing that somebody beat it while you were sleeping.
Yeah. But I also really feel like, because I really think it was cool. I hope we'll see way more of this. I hope other guilds will do it as well. But if this really has to turn into something a little bit more interesting and more sort of e-sporty, or at least competitive wise, then I think we really need to have a shared lockout. We really need, when the raid is live, it's live for everyone, because there is a little bit of, it didn't work out this time around for NA, but there is a little bit of an unfair advantage to it. But it goes both ways, because there's also bugs that obviously NA will experience first, and then they will be fixed for when EU comes in. So I mean, it goes both ways, but still, I think we need a shared lockout. We need a shared time for the raids to go live. And I mean, they have proved that they can do a worldwide launch. So obviously, it should be piece of cake to have a worldwide raid launch as well.
One thing that I would like to see that I think would be really cool is imagine like the Blizzard Arena, and then they have like a week or two, because most of these guilds take a week or two off of work anyway. What if Blizzard or somebody was to be like, hey, we have room for 3 of the top guilds. Like, you can stay here overnight. We have computers set up. You guys can do your streaming things. And then in like one room, you have Method. In another room, you have Limit. And then in another room, you have another one. And they're all kind of in the same space, doing it around the same times. And then maybe there's like a set time, like, hey, you have 12 to 14 hours a day. You can choose however much of that time that you want to raid or not raid, but that's your window. And all of you guys, like, you're here in the same time zone, in the same space, you're ready to go. I think that would be pretty cool. You could like switch perspectives on everything.
Most definitely. Sorry, Ryan, I think you wanted to say something.
No,
right?
you're fine. I was just going to say, going back to what you were talking about with the shared lockouts, part of the problem has always been traditionally that the European, just based on cultures alone, have had more of flexible or ability rather to take the time off to fully devote 2 weeks at a time for raiding, whereas the Americans, just based on our society and our culture, haven't had that ability. And as players and guilds start finding outside funding and stuff like that, they are starting to have more of the ability to have WoW be their jobs and not have to have actual jobs they have to go to day to day and get in the way of this raid race. So I'm hopeful moving forward with Limit having done this well that we'll continue to see that moving forward and maybe bring the American scene back in light and start finding some funding for these guys, even more so than they already have. So maybe that, we'll have a full world contention, whether it's the Alpha from the Asia side, Exorcist from the Russians, Method from the EU, Limit, or Blood Legion was even in the pack for a little bit, even though they said they weren't going to really compete. But, they were back in the running. We haven't seen them since.
Midwinter was quite high up as well, weren't they?
Yeah, and Midwinter announced halfway through Legion that they weren't going to compete anymore. But they're just so comprised of these top world players still that I think just based on sheer ability and the desire to play the game that they're still, halfway through each tier, they're still in the race, despite them not really caring where they end up.
Yeah.
As for what you were talking about, Michael, I think most of us would be all for that. And obviously Blizzard would have to do some things about really paying attention to the tuning going into it, so that we don't have this, possible scenario where 6 weeks before we see the last boss killed, because these players can't afford to stay in LA for 6 weeks unless it's completely funded for and they're getting.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, rent out an arena, like Blizzard themselves, be like, hey, we got stuff set up for you.
But I mean, yeah, because that would be the other problem. Is like, how do you adjust for them coming down and potentially killing the whole raid in a day, or taking forever, with like we saw in the last expansion with a couple of the tiers of raiding where just the last boss didn't die for weeks. But no, I'm all for that, man. I think that'd be fantastic, especially if they adopt more of the methodology that Method used, no pun intended, with the streaming and the entertainment value between pulls and having it be more scripted and controlled, so at least it's somewhat entertaining to watch.
But I mean, one thing that I was like, one thing I thought would be cool is if I could go to Limit's stream and see how they were doing, or some of the other contenders, because I mean, it was interesting to see how Method was doing, but you didn't really have that same. You could only see in Radar.io or WoW Progress that all right, now they have killed, like, both of them have killed 7 bosses, but you didn't really get that sense of progress. So I mean, it would be cool if more guilds would do this. I think it would be interesting to see.
Like the MDI format, where you have on one side one group, and then on the other side you have the other group, and you can see like the differences between their pulls, their approaches, where one's wiping, where one isn't wiping, things like that.
How are people keeping track of limits? You know, when they had times where they're getting to 11, 4 or 5, whatever, 1%. How are people keeping track of that? Because they were being pretty tight-lipped about everything they were doing.
Yeah, I think it was mainly just. I think they did post like updates on Twitter and stuff.
Okay.
But so I think that they were really controlling with what information that they gave out. But I mean, I also guess that a lot of people know each other when they're on that scene, right? Or have people in the circles that know each other. So
They were mentioning on the stream, like, I keep forgetting his name, the bench player, but he was just saying, he's like, I have the number to this person. Maybe I should call them and be like, hey guys, where are you at right now? So they know each other. They know each other.
Yeah. So. All right. Something else that some of us have been waiting a long time for is the Warfronts.
That's right.
It finally got to the Alliance side, and I guess we're really close at running that full circle now. So we know how it works. So a lot of that was a good part of the player base who don't like this, and then there is a good number of the player base that really enjoys it.
Mm-hmm.
So have you jumped into this yet, Michael? Have you tried it out?
Yes.
What are your thoughts about it then? You as a casual player, do you enjoy it?
I'm kind of in the middle area. I jumped into it yesterday for the first time, and I actually did it twice yesterday because I wanted to see the replay value. I've seen videos about how the replay value is not always there, but then I was like listening to Taliesin, and he was talking about how he got bored of it after the third one, but then he caught that itch again like an hour later and was back into it. It's okay for me. It's a weird mix of like RTS, World of Warcraft, and then a MOBA feel. One thing I really don't like is the lack of, I feel like I'm actually making a difference in the scenario as a whole. I was just going around gathering wood, but I wasn't sure if I had to like return the wood back to the base or if it was just gathered when I got it, what was going on there. I wasn't sure what was happening, and I was just gathering wood, and then I'm like, yeah, this is kind of boring, let me go kill some things. So I jumped in with the group that was killing things, and for some reason my damage was like all the way at the top. So I'm like, either I am not reading this correctly, or these people are not that good. Like, these are not Raiders and Mythic Plus people doing damage over here, I'll tell you that much.
Well, sorry, I'll probably have to burst your bubble here. It's because you're looking at your own damage meters, right?
Yeah.
If people are out of range of that, then it will not record. So
Okay.
So it will basically record all of your DPS, but only the others when they are in range. So you'll never get like a clear picture of it.
Okay, yeah, so I saw like some people that were in my little area, like their numbers were going up too. But even still, like that group, whatever groups I was in, I was like, y'all ain't that good, Not, but I mean, I think it's okay. I got a piece of 370 gear, which was nice. The 340 gear that I got was not worth it. Like, it was just I'm not able to target. I feel like I'm not able to target a piece of gear in there. I don't know if it's random or like if there's a set list of pieces that you can get, but it's not helping me get the pieces that I need at the moment, and it's a little bit lengthy depending on your group. Like, it lasted, I think, I was in there for 20, almost 30 minutes, and
it's basically like the length of a small dungeon, of one of the shorter dungeons.
I'd rather do a dungeon than this. Let me just say.
Yeah, because in that dungeon there's like 4 bosses, right? With a chance of getting loot, where here you have the chance to get 1 piece of loot. I will have to say 2 things. I think one is that on my main, and jump in, got the achievement, and I got the 370 item, and luckily it was an upgrade for me, so that was great. But besides that, I didn't really feel to jump in it on my main. But I also have an alt at 120 that I'm enjoying, and I did everything I could to get him to 320, so I could jump into this. And for him, it's actually playing on that character is pretty good fun, because I actually feel like I get rewarded for it.
Okay.
That 340 items, they're pretty good upgrades for my alt. Second thing is that I felt the same way as you, I think, that it didn't feel like there was too much different things to do. But then I actually looked at achievements, and I was like, okay, there's an achievement here for capping all the areas. So the other few times I jumped in, it forced me to go to other areas than what I've been in previously, and also be a little bit tactical about where to position myself to be able to cap these things. So it gave me a little bit of replayability. If you're into achievements, then it will give you a little bit of replayability. So it's definitely not something I would be doing massively, I think, but it's something that's fun to jump into. I thought it was actually pretty good fun. Is it the best experience that Blizzard have ever created? No, not really, but it's good fun, and I can definitely see if they improve on it, that it could turn into something interesting, I'd say. How about you, Ryan? Mythic Raider. Have you looked at it at all? He's
That's how I
yawning.
feel about it.
He's yawning.
You know, it's on Michael. I think between Island Expeditions and Warfronts, I think they are great in concept. I'm all for Blizzard trying to think and create new types of experiences like this. We got Mythic Plus out of one of those ideas, but I think for me personally, the replayability just isn't there. I tend to get bored with things that don't have any sort of immediate benefit to my character, and I'm kind of at that point with my monk. It's like if I go in there, this isn't gonna I'm literally gonna get nothing from this that helps continue to progress my character, literally. And the only reason I do Island Expeditions is to continue to get that honor bound rep. And some Michael, most people, for those that don't realize, Island Expeditions, if you're looking to grind AP, is the most efficient and quick way to do so. But I don't know, man. I just don't like achievements. Don't do it for me alone. You know, obviously, like I said, Island Expeditions, I'm in there from the AP and the rep standpoint. But once I get to a point where I have my fully exalted with honor bound, I'm not really sure if I'm going to continue to do Island Expeditions outside of maybe every so often when I need to grind some AP out. And Warfronts, you know, if I'm bored, maybe I'll jump in there. Obviously, it's great for getting a couple pieces of gear for an alt. But from a main character standpoint, I think they need to make some improvements.
Yeah. I agree to all of that. Speaking of being exalted, I actually just realized right now that I actually hit exalted with the Seventh Legion. So I unlocked my Dark Iron Dwarf, and I created one and started leveling, and and then realized I'll probably never have that that armor transmark, because oh my god, I cannot for the life of me level more characters.
Well, hey man, you may actually have some more time on your hands coming up here soon than you realize.
Maybe, who knows? Yeah. Anyway, we had some. We have like 10 minutes left. How the hell do we actually cram all this content in? All right. First off, we had an AMA last weekend, and I'm not really a big Reddit buff. I don't really go there often, so I have not too much experience with AMAs. Any of you guys who have, how do you feel it went? Ryan. Michael is pointing towards you.
Oh, Michael's kind of, you know, like I said, I've had a lot of life up to this point, and so I haven't been able to keep up with things, and I've just been kind of this last week when my life has finally kind of calmed back down, been trying to play catch up. So Michael was kind of filling me in on a lot of the AMA. I think them doing these AMAs is fantastic, you know, whether it's on Reddit or the Q&As on live stream. I think people tend to gravitate toward different social media avenues where they like to get their information from, so to kind of vary it up and hit different areas, I think is fantastic. And I think keeping that line of communication open with the player base is something that Blizzard should always do. So the fact that they do it is great. My general feeling, without diving too specifically into any one question, and I've said this before, I have absolutely felt like since Ian Hazakasas took over the reins with WoW, that there's been a shift in mentality to the idea that this is our game, this is how we want to create it, tough shit, deal with it. And I'm not okay with that in a lot of respects, because if the players aren't liking something, or if something isn't working, despite your better intentions of how you intended to design that piece of the game, if it's not working, it's not working.
Well, if you don't like it, go play Destiny 2.
And then be even more frustrated. And don't get me wrong, I freaking love WoW. You have to try really, really hard to get me to move away from WoW. There's so much that is just absolutely great about this game. But I don't. A lot of these questions, I think the answer, whether it's politely answered or, arguably not politely answered, I feel like a lot of times the influence behind the answer is, well, this is how we're going to do things. Well, okay, well, maybe you should take a step back and listen to the players and kind of decide. Or a lot of times the answer is, well, we understand things are not necessarily working as we intended. We're going to continue to look at it and see, well, no, if it's not working, fix it. Do something about it, And I think a lot of times they make us wait for changes when they shouldn't, or they change things that are kind of inconsequential comparatively speaking, and it's just like I don't know. I don't get a lot of the things that they're doing right now, especially the things that come out of these AMAs.
Yeah, I have to admit that I don't know what I expected from it, but I actually went and read some of the questions before they got answered, and then I saw the answers afterwards. And I mean, most of the things that I sort of wanted an answer to, they got pretty much all of them got answered, but I'm not really sure what I felt about the answers. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it because I guess I don't really know what exactly I expected and how I feel about it afterwards. It sort of felt like that. So I mean, something I can't understand why it would be like a surprise to them, but from the answer, it felt like it was a big surprise to them that shamans were in a bad state, for instance. And I was just really confused about how that answer got answered, how that question got answered, and things like that. And I think that was with a lot of the things. I felt that way, but I also felt like, because I talked to Tom about it, but because he messaged me, hey, I just read the AMA. Is World of Warcraft really in that bad of a state? And I was like, I guess, but I guess not. I'm not really completely sure. I think that I got, just reading all this, I got bummed out a little bit because this is the game that I love, and I didn't really realize that it was in such a bad state. And then I also started thinking maybe it's not really that of a bad state. Maybe it's just because there's a lot of focus on it right now, and I don't know. I was just really confused.
It's in that bad of a state, but you didn't realize it because they got you with their new shiny mount, and you just forgot about it.
This was before the mount. This was before the mount.
Exactly. That's why they released the mount.
No, but I just think that if you are, because I actually had to sit down and think about what I wanted to answer him, and I ended up with answering this. If you are a casual player who just wants to jump in and have some fun from time to time, the game is fine. Don't worry too much about it. Sure, there is some Azerite gear issues, but hey, you won't be unlocking all those anyway that fast. So when you finally get to it, then it will be hopefully balanced out or fixed or whatever. Or at least something has happened to the system. But if you're someone who wants to jump into Mythic ASAP, then some of this is probably more relevant to you, because some of it was pretty relevant to me. So I can understand where people are coming from and things like that. So I think it's really down to perspective as well. What are you doing in the game, and what do you feel like fun? So yeah, I mean, I don't think personally that World of Warcraft is in a really bad state, but I definitely think there is a lot of different areas where they can do a lot of some improvement. And I just feel like there's a lot of focus and all that at the moment, because a lot of people have been saying, this expansion, it's rushed content. Because us as a gamer, we don't want to wait a year, but we don't want it being brought out too quickly as well, apparently. So yeah, I guess we're just not an easy bunch to make happy.
I've said it before with with BFA being announced during Legion. Legion was probably one of, I think it should arguably go down as one of the top 3 expansions Blizzard's ever put out with World of Warcraft. It was a fantastic expansion. The content was great, story was great, the raid design was great. They had a little bit of tuning issues, but overall,
In the beginning,
not a big deal.
in the beginning.
Yeah, not a big deal though. I think, despite Emerald Nightmare being a pushover, if you're any sort of involved with the story, I love the fact that we went in there and finally knocked out Xavius, that little punk. TOV was a great tie-over raid, but the tuning was way too high.
Oh, okay. I'm happy you added that because TOV I feel like was not a great raid.
No, the tuning was way too high. But in terms of here's a 3 boss raid to keep you busy for a little bit until we can put out the next full raid. Okay, fine, great. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think, especially, and I'll say it even now that BFA is out, if Blizzard is not careful, and if they don't fix what they need to fix to keep the player base happy and entertained, there is potentially another Warlords of Draenor on our hand. And not necessarily from a content drop perspective, but I think is people not being happy with the expansion. Right now, even in my guild alone, there's a lot of frustration, and I am kind of waiting to get those DMs. Hey, I think I'm stepping away from the game. You know what I mean? And I've had some talks with some of my other officers. Okay, what do we got to do to try and prevent those DMs? But in the event they do come, what's our course of actions so that we can keep going?
Candy.
And I think 6 month subscription with a ship mount is not the answer.
You can just fly away from all your problems.
I think Blizzard is definitely on the precipice of, if they're not careful, they could see a drastic reduction in the player base.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to agree. I have to agree. I also just have to watch out what I'm saying, I guess. But 8.1 looks interesting. There's a lot of, we won't be going into it today, but there's already like a lot of things in 8.1 that could suggest that hopefully we are going towards something a little bit better. But yeah, I think 8.1 is probably, we'll have to wait and see until that hits, I guess, before we get like a proper answer to all our questions right now. I mean, sure, they are trying to fix as much as they can with hot fixes right now, but there's also some things that needs like a proper patch, as they said. Do you think that they might come out with an 8.0.5, maybe like a half patch, half numbered patch, like they did a little bit in Legion? They went toward that way in Legion. Do you think we'll see that, or do we think 8.1 is the next one?
I think 8.1 is the next one.
Yeah, I think Michael's right, but if things continue to go the direction they're going, and players continually express unhappiness, maybe Blizzard, if they're smart, recognizes it sooner than later and puts something out there to keep players
like a band-aid.
Yeah, just something, and hopefully they get the idea that while you have the option of applying band-aids, you still need to fix the problem at its source. So I know I can come across as a negative Nancy towards a lot of this stuff. So please don't get me wrong. I absolutely love the game. I think BFA is great so far. I'm enjoying it. There's a lot about it that I don't enjoy, but I think when compared to, when I compare what I enjoy versus what I don't enjoy, what I do enjoy definitely is heavily outweighing the other side.
We have like sort of this saying, I don't know if we have it other places as well, that basically is like, people don't really complain because they hate stuff. People complain because they actually like stuff, but there's something wrong that needs to be fixed.
Because if I didn't like it and I didn't care, I wouldn't complain.
Yeah, exactly. Just like Destiny 2, I don't play it because I don't like what they're doing over there. All right, so lastly, and I think this is something we'll go way more into in the coming weeks, but I just want to quickly bring up that then after the MA, we got a tease that there will be a Q&A, and Well, there weren't. It was more like a hey, by the way, there is no fancy convention we're at right now, but we need to announce this 8.1. So now we're doing it here, surprise. um, and I mean, I think it took a lot of people by surprise. So we know that a lot of more things will be coming in 8.1. We'll get more war fronts that look interesting. We will get not just one but two raids. We'll get like a tie over TOV2 boss raid, and then we'll get a fully fleshed out raid as well, which is a little bit interesting and different than usual because I think this is a bold move, and it's if the and balancing all the fights will really make or break this raid, and if this is something Blizzard should continue going on with in the future, I feel like, because it will basically have faction based raids. Granted, you can do both sides, I believe he said that. So when you're done with it, you can go and do the opposite. If you're Alliance, then you can play the Horde version afterwards or something like that. But it will be interesting to see how we will handle this in our world first race, for instance. But I think basically how it works is that the three first bosses are different. Some of them are shared, and so I weren't completely sure how it worked, but I think some of them are shared. And then the end boss is different, right? Isn't that sort of how it works? That you're sharing at least you share some of the bosses, and then you have some that's specific. So what are your thoughts, Ryan? I think from a mythic perspective, mythic raider perspective, where Alliance and Horde have different fights. Well, how do you feel about that?
From the perspective of somebody who isn't involved in any sort of race, whether it be a server race, a mythic world race, it's cool. It's a different, we haven't gotten one of these types of things in a long time. We certainly haven't gotten it to this degree. So it's cool. It should be interesting. Hopefully if Blizzard does it right, it'll be a really cool experience. From a race perspective, I think this is potentially disastrous. Because if the bosses are different in big ways, and any one faction has an easier time on something, it leaves a lot of room for griping and people to say, well, they had it easier.
I sense that old Horde bias is potentially flaring up again.
Well, I mean, this goes all the way back to Naxxramas and Vanilla, man. When Poison Cleansing Totem was a thing, and Alliance only had Paladins, and they had to single target do it. They ran out of mana, and you saw very little Alliance guilds killing Cthulhu, or Cthulhu, however you want to say it. So there's what was it? Was it Siege? Not Siege. There was the one raid that Alliance didn't have to deal with trash that Horde did, or vice versa. You know what I mean? And it arguably made the time spent getting to boss easier. So there's definitely been instances where Horde and Alliance factions have had varying degrees of difficulty or ease. So I think, again, I'm not involved in a race. That was always been the thing I've advertised in my group, my guild. We're gonna move at the pace that our group moves at. You know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna sit there and ask you guys to go faster or do anything better. We're gonna move the pace that our group is at. Able to do so, and we'll be happy with that, and we'll kill mythic bosses as we can. So I think from a story and content perspective, this will be cool. And I think, as I understand it, every faction will have their fully fledged raid that is different from the other faction, and then after that, you will get to experience the other factions, some of their bosses.
I just hope that they'll do something. Obviously, we don't know how this will play out yet, but I just hope that they'll do something more to explain the story a little bit more. For example, I think what my biggest gripe is, if you're an Alliance player, you have no fucking clue why we're going to Uldir. We don't know what's going on in there and why we're doing it. We have no clue. I had to watch up videos on YouTube just to get the lore behind it and why it's such a big deal. And it turns out it's actually a pretty big deal going into Uldir, and really interesting. And I feel like from an Alliance perspective, it's explained really, really poorly. I started playing my Horde character recently as well. He's 112 now, I think. Just to play through the storyline and see what the hell is going on over there. Well, I know what's going on. I know the bullet points, but just to experience it for myself. So I hope that if there is something like that in this next raid, that they actually do something to explain it a little bit. I mean, sure, there is some things that make sense, is like oh, why would Alliance know about this? Because it only happened on the Horde side, but still going into a full-fledged raid and don't know why. I think that's a little bit bad, to be honest.
One thing I wanted.
I have to agree with you. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I just wanted to touch on if anybody looks at our show notes, you'll see that we linked a video from Taliesin where he goes in depth on it and actually discusses it. And one thing that he brings up that I'm actually way into is the fact that this is like one of the first raids where it feels like the story was built and then the raid was built around the story. And Blizzard kind of said, like, hey, if you need to make it different because of the way the story is being told, then make it different, rather than the raid being built and then somebody saying, like, okay, the raid, this is what's going on, now tie it into the story. And I agree with you that it could be disastrous for the world first, like the whole mythic scene, like that big thing. But if one raid is like that, is it really the end of the world? Like,
yes,
I think no. Okay, more people are, I think, going to be tied into the idea of, I can get behind doing something different in a raid versus the other thing, especially in this expansion where I have no idea what's going on the Horde side. They're doing whatever the heck they're doing over there, and I'm just playing Alliance. And I like the idea of, even if we somehow enter the same area, we're doing different things because we have different motivations. At one point, at least right now, we don't have a common enemy that we're fighting against, and I feel like it's really cool that we're clashing against each other in a way like this, rather than every raid simply being like, hey, here are your bosses, same order, same thing, everyone's doing it the same. If that's the case, then why can't I just raid with Horde people all the time if it's the same raid anyway?
Yeah.
So I love this idea from just like a storytelling standpoint. And if they want, they could actually say, like, hey, like, this one is one that we geared without even really, I mean, it probably wouldn't be the best PR, but if they just came out and said, look, we just did not think about the mythic race, and we built a raid that we wanted to build for like storytelling purposes and just pure enjoyment, I would get behind that. And it might piss a lot of people off to hear that, but for me, I can actually be like, I can get behind that because, one, you're being upfront about what you created, and you created something that you wanted a majority of people to experience in a way that was actually meaningful rather than just numbers.
Yeah. Michael, you're fired.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I hate that I'm admitting this, Michael, because you casual, filthy, dirty bastards are wrong. But again, I'm not in a mythic race, and so if they're gonna create some cool story content, great. But this is the last time you'll ever hear me agree with you, dirty, casual, filthy bastard.
That's what he says, but then every time I just have a certain way of making it so that people agree with me.
You're so dirty, casual, filthy bastard, though.
Blizzard, hire me. I could be your PR guy.
We also know a little bit about the end bosses, and that is for the Horde side. We have a certain Jaina Proudmore as the end boss, which I think a lot of people are like, "What's going on? What's going on with this?" I mean, she just. I mean, for a long time, we were really uncertain if she was going bad. And now we finally found out that she didn't, and her storyline has been amazing. And everybody, if they didn't love Jaina already, they definitely do now. Even Horde side are like, oh, that entrance with the flying ship was badass, man. And now it turns out that she's an end boss.
If we kill her, I'm quitting the game.
Don't lie.
No, she's my boo. I know I play Horde right now, but she's my boo.
Just so you know, if that happens, just so you know, if I see you logged into World of Warcraft, you will be called on it. I'd be like, I know that he downed Jaina and he's still playing. He lied. Go back to episode 205 when he said that's the end of it. Nope, he's a filthy liar after he called me a filthy casual. He's just a liar.
Michael, my love for Jaina runs deep, man. I fell in love with her when she was helping freeze enemies in Mount Hyjal, and I looked over and I'm just like, that's my boo.
Oh, so you're you're late to the show because I fell in love with her when she had a water elemental that came up and Arthur said she could handle herself.
All I know, Michael, is you're casual. I'm not.
Oh. Only in this game.
All right. We're running way over time. We actually didn't only have one question. We have two questions, but we already answered one of them. So let's just skip it because the question was how did we feel the AMA went? We already answered that. Second up, this is from Frasley, and he's asking, what do you think is coming in 8.1, and why do you think it is Mecha Gnomes? The short answer is I don't. For reasons that we just talked about. So we know what's going to be in 8.1. So I'm sorry. I think we actually got this question before the dev interview.
Yeah.
So there we go. Sorry, Frasley, no Mecha Gnomes. Anyone who got anything to add, or can we get the hell out of here?
I reflect your sentiment.
I don't. I think Mecha Gnomes are going to be the big thing behind it. They're going to save Jaina in the raid. The horde is about to kill her, and Mecha Gnomes like suddenly create something that forms a barrier around her, and she's saved.
If that's the outcome, Michael, I'm okay with it.
Now, see, everybody wins.
My booty.
All right. There we go. Let's push this. I can't even speak anymore. That's how long over time we've gone. Let's push this. Never mind. I'll just push it.
Push the button. Push the button.
Last orders. Last orders.
We've sort of made it. Before we end completely, I just want to quickly make a shout out to Nerd This Podcast, where all three of us. I needed to recount that. All three of us and our good friend.
Three.
Exactly. And our good friend Pete, aka Titan's Creed, are talking about what keeps us up at night. And yeah, I think that's it. Let's not go into.
The answer was antacid.
There we go.
Heartburn.
There we go. So after the episode, we have the Frasley report. So remember to stay around for that as well. But yeah, let us know your thoughts about anything we talked about on this episode, or if you have your own questions, feel free to contact us. Michael, how do people do that?
They can email the show at thebluereclusepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at The Blue Recluse. Or you can join our Discord, which is thebluerecluse.eu/Discord. There you can submit questions. If you want to ask us anything, feel free to jump in there. You can leave us a review on iTunes. You can find us on patreon.com/thebluerecluse. Or if you want to find all the information and our show notes and maybe even more, you can find us on our website on thebluerecluse.eu or thebluerecluse.com.
There we go. And before we end completely, Ryan, thank you so much for stepping in here and be an amazing replacement for Tom. Maybe we'll kick him permanently if you want the kick. I don't know. But anyway, we'll
talk about Hearthstone anyways, right?
Exactly. We'll talk about it after the show. If people want to know more about what you're doing, where can you find you, and what are you doing?
Absolutely. Like you already mentioned, you can find me over at Nerd This occasionally. Just anybody's guess each week who's going to be on each episode. That's been a lot of fun, actually, so I would encourage each and every single one of you listening to go check it out. There's a varying degree of episodes, so if one of them doesn't appeal to you, there's probably a different one that does, so check it out. You can also find myself and Marty, along with our good friend Oreo, over on the TRC podcast every Sunday, 2:30 Central Standard Time, where we live stream it. Like I said, I've had a little bit of life going on, so we actually have not recorded an episode in a couple of weeks, but we are back strong today. Here in just about an hour's time. So we will be doing a special tribute episode to a good friend of mine, and also talking about the friendships and bonds we have made through video games, specifically WoW. So come on, check us out. But yeah.
There we go. And with those words, there's nothing else to say, but thank you so much for listening. Frashly, take it away.
Welcome to the Frazzle Report, a short news report by me, Frazzly, the Awesome Gnome, to deliver your World of Warcraft news. So this week, we got the news of 8.1. It's hitting the PTR soon. We got a lot of information on the cool stuff that's coming. We're getting 2 raids, new story content, new war fronts, improved rep for alts, and no more gun pet battle dungeons!
Yeah, but ye forget to mention the money elementals. Looking at them screenshots, casters will soon be rolling in the gold, and I plan to take that booty.
How did you get in here? And who are you?
I be Bristol Two-Toes Norman, Scourge of the Sea, Destroyer of all, and Taker of Booty.
Wait a second. Donald, is that you?
Come on, Frazzly, play along. I bought this outfit for Pirate Day.
You're supposed to be running the audio equipment.
That stuff usually doesn't break. Once it's running, I usually just start playing Hearthstone.
Okay. So I take it from earlier that you were looking forward to the elementals the most.
Yeah, and the new raids and the transmog rep restrictions being lifted, lots of cool stuff is being added.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all that stuff. It'll be really cool.
Did you happen to read that Reddit anime that Ian did?
Yeah. Ooh, some of those commenters were not nice. I thought Ian did a great job, though.
Well, there was a poster named Clark Griswold killed my grandparents' cat, and they posted a comment and then deleted it. But it had a link to a now deleted post on Tumblr, and it had a link to what I think is a leaked 8.2 patch story plan. In these plans, they mention how Gallywix is trying to rule Azara for their power.
Now, that sounds like a far-fetched theory. Do you really believe a random deleted post on a Tumblr site?
Come on, it makes total sense. Gallywix wants to marry Azara and use their power.
Donald, you should go back to the other room and work on wrapping up this report. And stop reading that unofficial WoW manga.
It's true. Once 8.2 is unveiled, you will believe me.
We'll see. I've been hoping for Nomergon coming back for a while, so at least we are getting a pet battle dungeon. One day, the reclaimed Nomergon. Well, this has been the Frazzle Report. Until next time, be awesome.
Gallywix, be kind to my sweet Azara.
Donald!
This show is brought to you by Dragon Powered Studio. Find more at dragonpoweredstudio.com.